The containment chamber's alarm shrieked through the royal observation deck, and Commander Velrith's secondary arms locked behind her back while her primary hands moved to her weapons. Through the reinforced viewing wall, the human specimen sat motionless in his cell, eyes closed, breathing steady. Too steady. The biometric sensors showed his heart rate dropping below what their xenobiologists claimed was survivable for his species. Impossible, Junior Analyst Kesare said, her crest flattening against her skull. The sedation dose was calculated for his mass. He should be unconscious for another 6 cycles. Velrith's mandibles clicked once. He's been conscious for the last 40 minutes. Watch his fingers. The human's right index finger had been tapping against his thigh in precise intervals, 3 short, 3 long, 3 short. The same pattern, repeating. Not a nervous tick. A message. Get the translation matrix active, Velrith said. Now. Before Kesare could move, the human's eyes opened. He looked directly at the observation window, though their side was supposed to be opaque. His lips moved. No sound reached them through the barrier, but Velrith had studied enough species to read the words. I know you're there. The lights in the containment chamber died. Emergency illumination failed to engage. In the sudden darkness, Velrith heard Kesare's breathing accelerate, smelled the fear scent leaking from her pores. The younger officer had been so confident 3 hours ago, had actually laughed when the human was brought aboard. They're primitives, Kesare had said, reviewing the data on human civilization. No quantum drives. No neural linking. No genetic optimization. They still use projectile weapons and combustion engines. This one probably can't even comprehend where he is. Velrith hadn't responded then. She'd been reading the classified files, the ones marked with red authentication seals. The ones describing what happened to the Korvax expedition. To the Selenian trade fleet. To the entire research station at Proxima. The backup systems engaged, bathing the containment chamber in blue emergency light. The human stood now, positioned exactly beneath the ceiling's structural weak point. His hand rested against the wall, fingertips pressed to a seam that shouldn't have been visible to him. He's found the access panel to the atmospheric controls, Kesare whispered. How? We don't have those schematics in any database he could access. We barely have them. Because he watched us, Velrith said. When we brought him in, when we processed him, when we transferred him to this cell. He was counting steps, measuring angles, listening to every mechanical sound. He's been building a map in his mind. The human's fingers worked at the seam. No tools. Just pressure applied at precise points, exploiting tolerances in the panel's design that required engineering expertise to know existed. Should I alert the Queen? Kesare asked. The Queen is already aware. Velrith's secondary eyes tracked the multiple security feeds appearing on her wrist display. She's been watching since we entered orbit around his homeworld. The panel came free. The human set it aside carefully, then reached into the exposed compartment. Alarms should have sounded. Defensive measures should have deployed. Instead, the cell's containment field flickered and died. He's bypassed the failsafes, Kesare said, her voice rising. That's not possible without administrative access codes that change every. He doesn't need codes, Velrith interrupted. He needs patterns. And we gave him 40 minutes to observe them. The human stepped out of his cell into the containment corridor. 6 automated defense turrets tracked his movement. Velrith watched him pause, head tilted, listening to the barely audible hum of their targeting systems charging. He moved. The security footage became a blur of motion. The human dropped, rolled, came up running at an angle the turret's programming hadn't anticipated. Their weapons fired into empty space, tracking algorithms confused by his unpredictable velocity changes. He reached the first turret, jumped, used it as a springboard to reach the second. His hands found the ammunition feed mechanism. 2 precise strikes and the weapon went silent. 4 seconds. He'd neutralized 2 automated defense systems in 4 seconds. Seal this deck, Velrith ordered. Full lockdown protocol. Commander, if we seal this deck, we seal ourselves in with, do it. The heavy security doors began closing, their magnetic locks engaging with deep metallic thunks that resonated through the walls. The human had reached the third turret, had disabled it using a method completely different from the first two. Adapting. Learning in real time. Kesare's hands shook as she initiated the lockdown. Why aren't you stopping him? Because the Queen wants to see what he'll do. Velritha's eyes never left the monitors. She wants to understand. The human stood now in the center of the corridor, surrounded by disabled defense systems, sealed blast doors on all sides. Trapped. He should have been panicking. Instead, he looked up at the nearest security camera and smiled. Then he spoke. The translation matrix activated, rendering his words in sharp, clear galactic standard. Hello, Your Majesty. My name is Adrian Chin. I'm a maintenance technician from Seattle. I have a daughter who's probably very worried about me. I'd like to go home now. I think we should talk about how to make that happen. Velrith felt Kesare go rigid beside her. He knows the Queen is watching. The analyst breathed. How could he possibly know? Because he's been counting, Velrith said. Counting guards, counting response times, counting the resources deployed against one unarmed human. No species commits this level of attention to something insignificant. He deduced someone important was paying attention. On the screen, Adrian Chin stood perfectly still, waiting. The containment corridor was built to hold specimens that could tear through reinforced steel. Yet somehow, this human made it feel like he was the one in control. Velritha's wrist display chimed. A message appeared, carrying the Queen's personal encryption signature. Bring him to the throne room. I will speak with him directly. Kesare made a sound of disbelief. The Queen never meets specimens. Never. This violates every protocol we have. Velrith finished. Yes. Unseal the doors. We're taking him up. Commander, he's dangerous. He could have damaged the atmospheric controls and killed everyone on this deck. He could have weaponized the disabled turrets. He could have done 100 things, but instead he asked to talk. Velrith checked her weapons, more from habit than any belief they'd be useful. The question isn't whether he's dangerous, analyst. The question is what he wants. And why he thinks he has any leverage to negotiate for it. The blast doors opened. Adrian Chin didn't run. Didn't attack. He simply walked forward, hands visible and empty, moving like someone taking a stroll through a park rather than a prisoner approaching unknown judgment. Velrith stepped forward to meet him, her full 2-meter height dwarfing his smaller frame. Their eyes met. His showed no fear. Only careful assessment, and something else. Something that made Velritha's combat instincts scream warnings her conscious mind couldn't quite articulate. Hope. He looked hopeful. This way, Velrith said. The Queen will see you now. Adrian nodded once. Thank you, Commander. I appreciate the courtesy. As they walked toward the elevator that would carry them to the throne room, Kesare fell in behind them, her earlier confidence completely evaporated. She kept her distance from the human, her weapon drawn but lowered, clearly uncertain whether the barrel should point at him or away. Velrith understood the feeling. In 20 years of service across 30 systems, she'd never encountered anything like this. Their species had conquered gravity, mastered genetic modification, built an empire spanning light years. They were superior in every measurable way. Yet somehow, watching Adrian Chin walk calmly through their most secure military vessel toward an audience with their queen, Velrith couldn't shake the feeling that they were the ones at a disadvantage. The elevator doors closed. The ascent began. In the confined space, Adrian Chin started humming softly, a simple melody that probably meant something to his species. To Velrith, it sounded like a countdown. She checked her weapons again, knowing they wouldn't help if she was right. The throne room doors loomed ahead, massive and adorned with the achievements of an empire that had never known defeat. Behind those doors, Queen Zephyra waited, probably expecting to see a primitive creature finally, confronted with the scope of its own insignificance. Velrith suspected they were all about to learn something very different. The doors opened. The throne room stretched 300 meters from entrance to dais, designed to overwhelm visitors with the sheer scope of imperial power. Holographic star maps rotated overhead showing the territories under Queen Zephyr's control. 400 systems, thousands of worlds, trillions of subjects. The floor was polished obsidian harvested from the core of a collapsed star, reflecting the bioluminescent pillars that lined the approach to the throne. Adrian Chen paused at the entrance, but not in the paralyzed almost beings displayed. His eyes tracked the room's dimensions, counted the royal guards positioned at strategic intervals, noted the secondary exits, and the environmental controls visible along the upper galleries. 30 seconds of silent observation, cataloging everything. Then, he walked forward. His footsteps echoed in the cavernous space, steady and unhurried. Queen Zephyra sat motionless on her throne, a figure carved from living crystal and ancient authority. Her forearms rested on the armrests, each hand adorned with rings representing conquered civilizations. Her crest, fully extended, added half a meter to her already imposing height. The royal robes shifted color slowly, displaying the bioluminescent patterns that marked her lineage back through 2,000 years of unbroken rule. Beside Velrith, Kesari dropped into the traditional supplication pose, head lowered, secondary arms crossed over primary. Every other being in the throne room had assumed similar positions of deference. Adrian Chen stopped 10 meters from the base of the dais, and stood at ease, hands loosely clasped in front of him. Not aggressive. Not submissive. Simply present. The silence stretched. In that silence, Velrith watched the Queen's expression shift through microscopic changes. Surprise first. Then curiosity. Then, something Velrith had never seen on the Queen's face before. Interest. "You are the human," Queen Zephyrah said. Her voice carried perfectly through the throne room's acoustics, each word precisely articulated. "Adrian Chen of Earth." "Yes, Your Majesty." Adrian's tone was respectful but not obsequious. "Thank you for agreeing to meet with me." A ripple of shock moved through the assembled guards. Thanking the Queen implied she'd done him a favor. Implied choice. Implied they were negotiating from anywhere close to equal standing. "You disrupted my vessel's security systems," the Queen continued. "Disabled automated defenses. Demonstrated capabilities that should not exist in your species at your current technological development." "Explain." "I'm a maintenance technician," Adrian said. "I fix things. Ships, buildings, environmental systems. When something breaks, I figure out how it works and make it work again. Your systems aren't that different from ours. More advanced, yes, but the principles are the same. Everything has patterns. Everything has vulnerabilities built into its design. You speak of our Empire's military vessels as if they were primitive machines. With respect, Your Majesty, everything is a primitive machine to someone more advanced. I'm sure there are species out there who'd look at your ships the same way you're looking at my homeworld's technology." Adrian shifted his weight slightly. "But that's not really why I'm here. I'm here because you took me from my daughter. She's 8 years old. Her name is Maya. When your ship grabbed me from our apartment building, she was watching. I'd like to go home to her. And I think you want something from me. So let's talk about what kind of exchange might work." The Queen's crest flattened slightly, a sign Velrith recognized as intense focus. "You believe you have something we want?" "I know I do." Adrian's expression remained calm. "You don't grab random maintenance workers from random planets unless you're testing something. You've been watching Earth. Studying us. Probably for a while now. You took me specifically from a residential area during evening hours when witnesses would see your ship. You wanted my people to know we're not alone. You wanted them to be afraid. And if that were true," the Queen said slowly, "why would we want anything from someone we consider beneath our notice? Because being advanced doesn't mean being wise." Adrian's voice carried no accusation, just simple statement of fact. "Your empire is old. Powerful. But it's also rigid. I read that in how your guards move, how your systems are designed. Everything is optimized, standardized, controlled. That's a strength. But it's also a weakness. You've forgotten how to adapt, how to improvise, how to look at a broken system and fix it with whatever's available instead of whatever's specified in the manual. Kesari made a strangled sound. Speaking to the Queen this way violated every protocol, bordered on treason just to witness. Queen Zephyra leaned forward, her 4 hands gripping the armrests. You presume to lecture me on the weaknesses of an empire that conquered the stars while your ancestors were learning to make fire? I presume to offer a trade. Adrian corrected gently. You have technology, resources, power. But I'm betting you have problems that power can't solve. Systems that don't work the way they should. Situations where the standard protocols fail. That's why you're studying humanity. We're good at improvising. At making do. At finding solutions that shouldn't work but do. You want to understand that. Maybe even replicate it. The Queen was silent for a long moment. Then she made a gesture with her lower right hand. A holographic display materialized in the air between them, showing a complex mechanical structure that Velrith recognized as a quantum cascade drive, the technology that allowed faster-than-light travel. Our newest fleet, the Queen said, carries advanced drives that should have increased travel speed by 30%. Instead, they fail catastrophically at unpredictable intervals. Our best engineers have spent 3 cycles attempting to diagnose the problem. They cannot. The drives operate exactly according to specifications. Yet they fail. Adrian studied the hologram, his head tilting as he rotated the image with a gesture. May I ask questions? Proceed. When do the failures occur? Random intervals, or is there a pattern? Analysis suggests randomness. But you don't believe that. Adrian's eyes never left the hologram. You're too smart to believe in randomness at this scale. What's your instinct telling you? The Queen's crest rose slightly. No one questioned her instincts. No one asked what she believed versus what the data showed. The failures occur during transitions between quantum states. The mathematics are sound. The engineering is flawless. But something happens in that transition that our models don't account for. Because your models assume perfection, Adrian said. They assume every component operates exactly to specification every time. But nothing does that. Everything has variance. Tiny imperfections. Microscopic differences in temperature, pressure, molecular structure. Your drives are so precisely calibrated that those tiny variances create cascade effects your systems can't compensate for. He manipulated the hologram, zooming into a specific junction point. Here. This coupling. It's designed for perfect energy transfer. But perfect transfer means zero tolerance for variance. When the quantum transition happens, that's when variance peaks. You need to deliberately introduce imperfection. Add resistance that creates buffer space for the variances to dissipate harmlessly. You're suggesting we make our technology worse. Kesare blurted out, then, immediately regretted speaking. I'm suggesting you make it more resilient, Adrian said. Perfection is brittle. It breaks when conditions aren't ideal. Resilience survives when everything goes wrong. Queen Zephyra studied him with all 4 eyes, her expression unreadable. Then, she gestured again. The hologram changed, showing star maps with certain systems marked in red. These are our frontier territories, she said. In the past cycle, 17 colony worlds have experienced infrastructure failures. Medical systems, food production, environmental controls. All different systems. All catastrophic. All unexplained. Our analysts believe it may be coordinated sabotage by an unknown enemy. I suspect something else. You suspect your systems are too optimized for the controlled environments of your core worlds, Adrian said, studying the map. But frontier colonies have variables you can't control. Local conditions that deviate from specifications. Your systems work perfectly in perfect conditions, but colonies can't maintain perfect conditions. So everything starts failing in ways that look like sabotage but are actually just cascading system incompatibilities. If that's true, the Queen said quietly, then my expansion into new territories will inevitably fail. The farther we grow from our core worlds, the more our infrastructure will collapse. Unless you adapt your systems to be less perfect and more flexible. Adrian looked directly at the Queen. Which is hard for a civilization built on perfection and control. You'd have to accept that messy, improvised solutions might work better than elegant, optimized ones. That's not just a technical challenge. It's a philosophical one. The throne room had gone absolutely silent. Velrith realized she was holding her breath. This human was telling the Queen that the foundation of their empire, the superiority that justified their rule over hundreds of systems, was actually killing them. And the Queen was listening. You're correct about my daughter, the Queen said abruptly. I have 7 children. The youngest, Princess Kira, is 9 years old. 2 months ago, she was injured in an accident. Our best medical technology healed her body. But she hasn't spoken since. Our physicians find nothing wrong. Our psychologists have no explanation. She simply stopped. The Queen's voice carried a weight Velrith had never heard before. Vulnerability. You want to know what a human parent would do? Adrian said softly. I want to know what you would do. Because according to our research, your species' medical technology is primitive. Your psychological understanding is incomplete. Yet your child's survival and development rates are comparable to ours. You must compensate for your lack of advanced resources somehow. We sit with them, Adrian said. We don't try to fix them. We just stay. We're present. We show them they're not alone. Sometimes there's no technical solution. Sometimes the answer is just being there consistently until they're ready to come back. That's not a solution, Kesare muttered. That's just waiting. Waiting with someone is different from waiting for something, Adrian replied. Presence is its own action. Sometimes it's the only action that matters. The Queen stood. Every guard in the room tensed. She descended from the dais, her height and bearing making her seem even more imposing up close. She stopped directly in front of Adrian, looking down at him from her superior height. If I allow you to return to your daughter, she said, will you return to us? Will you help us understand how to make our perfection more resilient? Yes, Adrian said without hesitation. On 3 conditions. First, Earth is left alone. No more abductions. No interference. When humanity is ready to meet you as equals, we'll find you. Second, I need to be able to tell Maya the truth about where I am when I'm gone. No lies. No cover stories. She deserves honesty. Third, this has to be voluntary. I help because I choose to, not because I'm forced. You're a prisoner negotiating with an empire, the Queen said. You have no leverage. I have the leverage of being someone you came to find. Someone you need. Adrian's expression remained calm. You could force me. Probably make me comply. But forced help is never as good as willing help. You know that. That's why you're talking to me instead of just taking what you want. Queen Zephyra extended her primary right hand. The gesture was clearly significant. Velrith saw Kesare's eyes widen in shock. The royal handclasp, the Queen said. In our culture, it signifies agreement between equals. I have not extended it to anyone outside my direct bloodline in 30 years. Adrian looked at the offered hand, then up at the Queen's face. Then he reached out and grasped her hand. His smaller human hand disappeared into hers, but the gesture's meaning transcended the physical disparity. We have an agreement, the Queen said. Commander Velrith will return you to Earth. You will have 72 hours with your daughter. Then, you will return, and we will begin work on making our empire survive its own perfection. She released his hand and turned to Velrith. Prepare the transport. Personally escort him home. Ensure he's returned to the exact location we took him from. And, Commander? The Queen's gaze was sharp. You will lead the security detail for his future visits. I trust you understand the significance of this assignment. Yes, Your Majesty. Velra saluted, her mind already racing through the implications. The Queen had just designated a primitive human as valuable enough to warrant personal protection by her highest-ranked guard commander. As they exited the throne room, Kesari walked beside Velrith, her earlier confidence completely shattered. He spoke to the Queen like an equal, she whispered. And she accepted it. Because he offered her something she couldn't take by force. Velrith replied. Understanding. Partnership. A perspective her entire empire couldn't provide. She glanced back at Adrian, who walked calmly between them. You were right to laugh at the idea of humans, analyst. Just not for the reasons you thought. I don't understand. They're not superior in technology or power, Velrith explained. They're superior in adaptability. In accepting imperfection and working with it instead of against it. The Queen saw that. Saw what we've lost in our pursuit of optimization. She paused at the elevator. We conquered the galaxy by being better than everyone else. But we forgot how to learn from those we consider lesser. The elevator doors opened. As they descended toward the hangar deck, Adrian spoke for the first time since leaving the throne room. Maya's going to need proof that this wasn't a nightmare. That I'm really okay. Can you help me with that? Velrith considered. What kind of proof? A picture. Of me here on your ship. With you, maybe? Something impossible to fake that shows I'm alive and being treated well. It was a simple request. Reasonable. But it also meant providing a human child with undeniable evidence of alien contact. The implications cascaded through Velrith's mind, protocols being violated, classification levels being breached, first contact procedures being completely disregarded. Then she thought about what Adrian had said about presence. About being there for someone who needed you, regardless of technical protocols. She pulled out her personal recording device. Commander Velrith of the Imperial Guard, standing with Adrian Chen aboard the royal flagship Ascendant Dawn. Date, 7th cycle of the current reign. Time, evening shift, standard rotation. She turned the device to show both their faces. Maya Chen, your father is safe. He will be home soon. This is my personal vow. Adrian's expression showed the first genuine emotion she'd seen from him since his capture. Relief. Gratitude. Thank you. In the hangar, a small transport ship waited, already prepared for the journey to Earth. Velrith had pulled her best pilot, her most trusted crew. This wasn't just a prisoner transfer anymore. This was a diplomatic mission of unprecedented significance. As Adrian boarded the transport, Kesari finally found her voice. Commander, what just happened? Velrith watched the human strap into his seat, still calm, still present, already thinking ahead to the daughter waiting for him. We met someone who changed everything, analyst. The Queen laughed at the idea of a human mattering. Then, she watched one human demonstrate why our entire empire might need to rethink what superiority actually means. The transport lifted off, its engines humming smoothly as it maneuvered toward the hangar exit. Through the viewport, Velrith saw Adrian looking out at the stars, probably calculating the journey home, already planning how to explain the unexplainable to an 8-year-old girl. Will he come back? Kesari asked. Yes, Velrith said with certainty. Because he gave his word. And because he understands something we forgot, that helping others makes you stronger, not weaker. That admitting you need help isn't submission. It's wisdom. The transport cleared the hangar, aligned itself toward the blue-green planet visible in the distance, and accelerated. Velrith watched until it disappeared into the darkness, carrying a maintenance technician from Seattle who'd somehow negotiated with an empire and won. Not through superior force. Not through advanced technology. Through simple human resilience, adaptability, and the revolutionary idea that imperfection might be strength. The transport touched down in the parking lot behind Adrian's apartment building at 9:47 p.m. local time, exactly 71 hours and 33 minutes before he was due to return to the Ascendant Dawn. The ship's cloaking field rendered it invisible to human technology and the naked eye, but Adrian could feel the displacement of air as the landing ramp extended. Velra stood at the top of the ramp, her form backlit by the ship's interior lighting. 72 hours, she said. Not a minute longer. We'll be monitoring to ensure your safety. If you experience any complications from your time aboard our ship, I'll be fine. Adrian was already moving toward the ramp, his entire body language shifted now, focused entirely on getting inside his building, getting to his apartment, getting to Maya. Then he paused, turned back. Commander, thank you for speaking up for Maya. The Queen heard you. That recording you made, that's going to mean everything to her. Return safely, Velrus said. The Queen is already assembling teams to work with you. They're skeptical. You'll need to prove your value quickly. I'll prove it by fixing things they think are unfixable. Adrian smiled. That's what I do. He descended the ramp and crossed the parking lot at a run. Velrith watched him go, then gestured for the pilot to retract the ramp. The transport would remain here, cloaked and waiting, monitoring Adrian's biosigns and maintaining a discreet security perimeter. If anything threatened him, they'd intervene immediately. The Queen's orders had been explicit: protect the asset. But Velrith understood the deeper truth. Adrian Chin wasn't an asset. He was something far more dangerous to an empire built on rigid superiority. He was proof that value existed in unexpected places, that the powerful had things to learn from the weak, that strength came in forms their civilization had forgotten how to recognize. Adrian reached the apartment building's entrance and fumbled with his keys. His hands were shaking now, the first sign of genuine stress Velrith had seen from him. Everything he'd done aboard the ship, every calm word and calculated action, had been carefully controlled performance. Now, about to see his daughter again, his control was cracking. The door opened. Adrian disappeared inside. On the transport's monitoring station, the security officer tracked his biosigns as he climbed stairs, moved down a hallway, stopped outside a specific door. Heart rate elevated. Respiratory rate increased. Stress hormones spiking. Then, the door opened. Inside apartment 3B, Maya Chin had been sitting at the kitchen table doing homework with her grandmother when she heard the knock. 3 short, 3 long, 3 short, the same pattern she'd been tapping on every surface for 3 days, the pattern her dad had taught her that meant I'm here, I'm safe, I love you in the code they'd invented together. She ran to the door faster than her grandmother could stop her, yanked it open, and launched herself at her father with enough force to make him stagger backward. Adrian caught her, lifted her, held her so tight that she couldn't breathe and didn't care. She was crying, he was crying, and words tumbled out of both of them in an incomprehensible rush. You're real, you're really here, I saw the ship and they took you and I thought, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry, I wanted to call but I couldn't, there was no way to, where were you? What happened? Are you hurt? I'm fine, I'm okay, I'm here now, I'm here. Maya's grandmother stood in the doorway, one hand pressed to her mouth, tears streaming down her face. She'd spent 3 days filing police reports, calling hospitals, trying to convince anyone who'd listen that her son-in-law had been taken by a spacecraft. Most people had assumed she was having a breakdown. The police had been sympathetic but useless. Now he was back, appearing with no explanation, and she found she didn't care about the impossibility of it. He was here. Maya was whole again. That was enough. Adrian carried Maya to the couch and sat with her still wrapped around him. She was talking nonstop now, words pouring out, everything she thought, felt, feared in the days he'd been gone. He listened to every word, his presence the only answer she needed for most of it. Finally, she pulled back enough to look at his face. Where were you? Really? This was the moment. He'd promised the Queen honesty. Promised himself he wouldn't lie to his daughter, wouldn't gaslight her about what she'd seen. But how did you explain spaceships and alien empires to an 8-year-old without traumatizing her? You saw the ship, he said carefully. You saw what happened. Aliens took you. Maya said it as simple fact, the same tone she'd used to say the sky was blue. Children were good at accepting impossible things when the evidence was clear. Why? Because they wanted to understand humans. They've been watching Earth, trying to learn about us. They took me to their ship to ask questions. Did they hurt you? No. They were curious. Cautious. They have different rules than we do, different ways of doing things, but they didn't hurt me. Maya processed this. Are you going back? The question hung in the air. Adrian felt his grandmother-in-law's sharp attention, knew she was listening to every word, evaluating whether he'd lost his mind or if something truly impossible was happening. Yes, he said honestly. They asked me to help them with some problems they're having. Technical stuff, like what I do at work, but bigger. More complicated. I said yes because it means Earth gets left alone. They promised not to bother anyone else if I help them. So you're protecting us. Maya's grip on his shirt tightened. Like a superhero. Not a superhero. Just a dad who knows how to fix things. Adrian pulled out his phone, transferred the recording Velrith had made. I need to show you something. Prove that when I go back I'm safe. That they're treating me okay. He played the recording. Maya watched herself on the screen, watched her father standing next to an alien being who looked like something from the science fiction movies they watched together. Watched Commander Velrith make her formal vow. She's big, Maya said. Bigger than you. Yeah. Most of them are. But size doesn't mean everything. They need help with things, just like we do. Just like you sometimes need help with homework. And you're going to help them. Maya's voice was small. For how long? I don't know exactly. But I'll come home as often as I can. Every visit will be for a few days, maybe longer. And while I'm gone, you can message me. They said they'd set up a communication system. Like video chat but in space? Exactly like that. Maya was quiet for a moment, processing. Then, can I see the ship? Adrian blinked. What? Their ship. Can I see it? Can I meet Commander Velrith? Can I? She was getting excited now, fear transforming into curiosity with the rapid emotional pivoting only children could manage. Can I learn about them? If you're going to be working with them, I should know about them too. Right. He started to say no automatically, started to explain about security protocols and danger and age-appropriate exposure to alien contact. Then, he remembered what he told the Queen about honesty. About not hiding things from Maya. And he remembered what the Queen had said about her own daughter. About presence being more important than perfection. Let me ask, he said. I can't promise anything. But I'll ask. He pulled out the communication device Velrith had given him before he left, a small crystal that, when activated, would send an encrypted signal to the transport. He'd been told to use it only for emergencies. This felt like the right kind of emergency. He pressed the activation sequence. Within seconds, his phone chimed with an incoming call from an impossible number. He answered on speaker. Adrian Chin. Velrith's voice came through clearly. What is your status? I'm fine. Safe at home with Maya. But she has a request, and I told her I'd ask you. He took a breath. She wants to see the ship. To meet you. To learn about who I'm working with. Silence on the line. Adrian could imagine Velrith consulting protocols, weighing regulations against the unprecedented nature of their situation. This is highly irregular, Velrith said finally. Human children are not cleared for contact. Our protocols, I know, Adrian interrupted gently. But protocols are made to serve specific purposes. What's the purpose here? To protect Maya, right? To make sure contact doesn't harm her. But she already saw your ship. She already knows. And she's asking to understand more, not because she's scared but because she's curious. Honest curiosity is healthy. It's how humans learn to process new things. More silence. Then, stand by. The line went quiet but didn't disconnect. Adrian looked at Maya, who was practically vibrating with excitement. His mother-in-law had moved closer, still processing, still trying to reconcile the impossible conversation happening in her ordinary living room. 5 minutes passed. Then, Velrith's voice returned. The Queen has approved a brief visual contact. Maya Chin may approach the transport with you for a 5-minute meeting. No other humans. No recording devices beyond what I provide. This is not precedent-setting. This is a specific exception based on unique circumstances. Do you understand? Completely. Thank you, Commander. Report to the parking lot in 10 minutes. I will meet you at the perimeter. The call ended. Maya was already running to get her shoes. Adrian's mother-in-law grabbed his arm. Is this real? She asked quietly. Am I really letting my granddaughter meet aliens? It's real, Adrian said. And I wouldn't let her do it if I thought they'd hurt her. She's professional. Careful. She understands what Maya means to me. And the Queen? This empire you mentioned? Powerful. Advanced. But struggling with problems they don't know how to solve. They're not enemies. Just different. And trying to figure out if we can help each other. His mother-in-law studied his face for a long moment. Then she nodded. Your wife would have thought this was insane. But she also would have trusted your judgment. So I will too. But Adrian, if anything happens to that little girl, then nothing else matters. He finished. I know. 10 minutes later, they stood in the parking lot where the transport should be. Maya held Adrian's hand tightly, her earlier excitement tempered now by the reality of what was about to happen. The air shimmered, and suddenly, Velrith was there, her cloaking field deactivating to reveal her full height and presence. Maya squeaked but didn't run. She pressed against Adrian's side but kept her eyes on Velrith, taking in every detail of the alien commander's appearance. Maya Chin, Velrith said, her voice modulated to be less intimidating. I am Commander Velrith. Your father has performed a great service for my people. We are grateful for his courage and his wisdom. You're really tall, Maya said. Then, remembering her manners, it's nice to meet you. Velrith's mandibles moved in what might have been a smile. You are very small. But your father speaks of you with great respect. He says you are brave and intelligent. I'm okay at math, Maya offered. And I'm good at art. Art is valuable. It shows ability to see things in new ways. Your father has this skill as well. Velrith gestured behind her. The air shimmered again, revealing the outline of the transport. Would you like to see our ship? Maya nodded, speechless now. They approached the transport together. Velrith had arranged for the exterior hull to display bioluminescent patterns, creating a light show that was beautiful rather than intimidating. Maya's eyes went wide. It's pretty, she breathed. Our ships are grown as much as built, Velrith explained. The hull is partially organic. It responds to our presence, our needs. It is designed to be both functional and aesthetically pleasing. She knelt down, not an easy gesture for her species, bringing herself closer to Maya's eye level. Your father will be safe when he travels with us. I give you my personal vow. No harm will come to him while he is under my protection. Maya looked at Adrian, then back at Velrith. Do you have kids? The question clearly surprised Velrith. I know. My service to the Queen does not permit time for family bonds. That's sad, Maya said with the blunt honesty of childhood. Everyone should have someone to take care of. Velrith was silent for a moment. Then, perhaps you are correct. Your father is teaching us many things. Perhaps this is another lesson we should learn. She stood, her full height restored. 5 minutes have passed. It is time for you to return home. Maya Chin, you have shown great courage today. Your father is fortunate to have you. Will you keep him safe? Maya asked. I will. Okay. Maya looked up at her father. You can go help them. But you have to come back a lot. And tell me everything. Deal? Deal, Adrian said, his throat tight. They walked back to the apartment building. At the entrance, Maya hugged him one more time. I love you, Dad. I love you too, Maya Bean. So much. He watched her go inside with her grandmother, waited until he saw the light come on in their apartment, saw her small silhouette appear at the window. She waved. He waved back. Then, he turned and walked back toward the invisible transport, toward Velrith and the empire that needed him, toward a future that was impossible and terrifying and maybe, just maybe, hopeful. Because if an 8-year-old could meet an alien and see past the fear to the possibility, maybe entire civilizations could do the same. Adrian returned to the Ascendant Dawn exactly 72 hours after his departure. The transport docked in the main hangar, and Velrith met him at the airlock with 3 other aliens he hadn't seen before, 2 engineers with multiple tool-laden harnesses, and a smaller being whose crest markings indicated scientific specialization. Adrian Chin, Velrith said formally. Allow me to present Senior Engineer Thaxus, Junior Engineer Pellin, and Lead Quantum Physicist Dr. Sorvi. They will be your primary team for the drive system modifications. Thaxus's primary arms crossed in what was clearly skeptical body language. The human who claims to fix what our best minds cannot. I don't claim to be smarter than anyone, Adrian replied evenly. I just see problems differently. Where do you need me to start? Dr. Sorvi gestured toward the corridor. The test facility. We have a drive system isolated for examination. The Queen has authorized you to access all technical specifications and diagnostics. They walked through corridors that were becoming familiar to Adrian, though he still catalogued every detail, still noted the patterns in how the ship's systems operated. The test facility was a massive chamber containing what looked like a smaller ship's entire propulsion system, surrounded by monitoring equipment and holographic displays showing data streams. This is the 7th drive to fail, Thaxus explained, his tone suggesting he was humoring a fool. Catastrophic cascade during quantum transition. No warning. No consistent triggering factors. Complete system destruction in 0.003 seconds. Adrian studied the destroyed drive components, his mind already working. Show me the successful transitions. I need to see what it looks like when everything works perfectly. Pellin activated a holographic replay. The drive system cycled through its pre-transition sequence, built energy carefully, hit the critical threshold, and transitioned smoothly to quantum state. Beautiful. Elegant. Absolutely perfect. Now show me the failures. All of them. 6 more replays, 6 catastrophic cascades. Adrian watched each one 3 times, his expression focused. The team waited, their impatience barely concealed. There, Adrian said finally, pointing to a specific moment in the 3rd failure. And there. And there. Do you see it? See what? Dr. Sorvi asked. The timing. Look at the microsecond immediately before cascade. There's a resonance pattern forming in the energy field. It's tiny, barely detectable, but it's there in every failure. Resonance is expected, Thaxus said dismissively. Quantum transitions create harmonic frequencies. That's basic physics. Right. But in your successful transition, those harmonics stay stable. In the failures, they amplify. Something is feeding back into the system and amplifying natural resonance until it hits critical mass. Adrian moved closer to the hologram. What's different about the environments where these drives failed versus where they succeeded? Nothing significant, Dr. Sorvi said. Minor variations in ambient temperature, local gravitational fields, trace particle density. Nothing that should affect performance. Should being the key word. Adrian studied the data streams. Your drives are calibrated for ideal conditions. But space isn't ideal. It's messy. Full of variables. When you hit quantum transition, you're opening the system up to interaction with local spacetime. If local conditions have unexpected properties, even tiny ones, they can create feedback into your resonance patterns. He manipulated the hologram, isolating the energy flow patterns. You need dampening. Not electronic dampening that tries to suppress the harmonics, but physical dampening that gives them somewhere to dissipate. Think of it like when you're tuning a guitar string. If you hold it rigid at both ends, any vibration amplifies. But if you add mass at specific points, you can absorb the vibrations before they build. Thaxus made a derisive sound. You want to add mass to a quantum drive? That's the opposite of optimization. Mass reduces efficiency. 2% efficiency loss to prevent 100% catastrophic failure seems like a good trade to me, Adrian replied. But don't just add random mass. Calculate where the resonance patterns concentrate. Add dampening structures precisely at those points. The mass becomes part of the system instead of a burden on it. That's... Dr. StoryHFY trailed off, her expression shifting. That's actually theoretically sound. If we model the resonance patterns across all failure conditions, identify the common concentration points. Then, add structured dampening that absorbs variance instead of trying to eliminate it. Adrian finished. Your drives will be slightly less efficient in perfect conditions, but they'll work in imperfect conditions. Which is where you actually need them to work. The three engineers exchanged glances. Pellin moved to a console and started running calculations. Numbers cascaded across displays. After several minutes, she looked up, her crest fully extended in surprise. The model holds. Across all failure scenarios, strategic mass additions at calculated points would absorb resonance buildup before cascade. Efficiency loss is minimal, 1.7% average. But reliability increases to, theoretically, 100% within tested parameters. Impossible, Thaxus said. But his tone had shifted from dismissive to uncertain. You solved in 30 minutes what we couldn't solve in 3 cycles? I didn't solve it, Adrian corrected. I just asked what you'd gain by making it less perfect. You were so focused on optimization that you couldn't see how optimization itself was the problem. Sometimes good enough is better than perfect. Dr. StoryHFY was already pulling up fabrication protocols. We can manufacture dampening structures within 2 cycles. Test installation within 3. If this works, it will work, Adrian said with quiet confidence. It's not elegant. It's not beautiful. But it's resilient. And resilience matters more than elegance when lives depend on your systems. Thaxus studied Adrian with new assessment in his 4 eyes. The Queen was right about you. You see our blind spots. The things we miss because we're too advanced to consider primitive solutions. There's nothing primitive about using mass strategically, Adrian replied. It's just different from what you're used to. Different isn't lesser. It's just different. Over the next several days, Adrian worked with the engineering team on multiple systems throughout the ship. Each problem followed similar patterns, elegant solutions optimized for perfect conditions failing when reality introduced variables. And each solution Adrian proposed involved accepting imperfection as a feature rather than fighting it as a flaw. Words spread through the ship. The human who thought like a broken machine. The primitive who fixed what the advanced couldn't. Initially skeptical crew members started bringing him problems. Small things at first. An environmental control system that drifted out of calibration, a food synthesizer that produced inconsistent results, a medical scanner that gave false readings during certain procedures. Adrian fixed them all by finding where optimization had created brittleness and adding flexibility. The environmental system got broader acceptable tolerance ranges. The food synthesizer got manual override options for edge cases. The medical scanner got secondary verification protocols that didn't rely on perfect sample conditions. On the 6th day, Velrith found him in his assigned quarters, reviewing colony infrastructure reports from the failing frontier worlds. The Queen requests your presence, Velrith said. She wants an update on your progress. Already? Adrian looked up from the holographic displays surrounding him. I've barely started on the colony problems. You've solved the drive cascade issue and corrected 17 other shipboard systems. Word has reached the Queen's Council. They are divided. Half believe you're a valuable resource. Half believe you're making our technology worse by introducing inefficiency. What does the Queen believe? She's reserved judgment until you address the colony failures. That's the real test. If you can fix those, you prove your value. If you can't. Velritha's expression was unreadable. Then you've solved small problems while the larger issue remains. Adrian stood, gathered his notes. Then, let's go find out which half of the council is right. The throne room was more crowded than during his first visit. The queen sat in her customary position, but arrayed before her were what Adrian assumed were her senior advisors, 12 aliens of various species, all wearing insignia marking them as high-ranking officials. Their expressions ranged from curious to hostile. Adrian Chin, the queen said. You have had 6 days to examine the colony infrastructure failures. What have you found? A systematic incompatibility between your core world engineering standards and frontier world environmental realities, Adrian said directly. Your systems are designed for controlled environments. Temperature regulation, atmospheric composition, humidity, particle density, all maintained within tight specifications. But frontier colonies can't maintain those specifications. They're dealing with native atmospheres, variable temperatures, unexpected contamination. Your systems encounter conditions outside their operating parameters and fail. We know this, said one of the advisors, a tall being with crystalline features. We have attempted to adapt systems for local conditions. The adaptations fail as well. Because you're still optimizing, Adrian said. You're creating custom specifications for each colony. But every colony is different. You can't optimize for infinity. What you need is systems robust enough to function across a wide range of conditions without requiring constant calibration. Such systems would be inefficient, another advisor protested. They would waste resources operating below peak performance. They'd be alive, Adrian countered. A system running at 80% efficiency that works for 50 years is better than one running at 98% that catastrophically fails after 6 months. You're choosing perfect performance over reliable survival. That's a losing strategy for frontier expansion. He pulled up his analysis, displaying it for the assembled council. I reviewed all 17 colony failures. Every one followed the same pattern. You deployed optimized systems designed for controlled environments. Local conditions introduced variables. Your systems couldn't adapt. They failed. What you need is deliberate over-engineering, redundant pathways, manual override capabilities, tolerance for degraded performance. All the things that make systems less efficient but more resilient. The crystalline advisor made a dismissive gesture. You propose we intentionally make our technology worse. I propose you make it appropriate for its operating environment, Adrian replied. A machine designed to operate perfectly in a laboratory is different from a machine designed to keep people alive on a hostile planet. You've been deploying laboratory equipment to survival situations. That's why it's failing. The Queen leaned forward. Show me a specific solution. Not theory. Actual implementation. Adrian highlighted one of the failed colonies. Colony 17. Medical systems failed because the atmospheric composition interfered with diagnostic equipment calibrated for core world air. Instead of recalibrating for local atmosphere, you tried to maintain core world conditions in the medical facility. That required perfect environmental sealing. When the seals degraded, which they inevitably did under frontier conditions, contamination crashed the diagnostic systems. He showed his proposed modification. Stop trying to maintain perfect conditions. Instead, design diagnostic equipment that functions across a range of atmospheric compositions. It won't be as precise as core world equipment. It might require medical staff to confirm results manually. But it will work when you need it instead of failing catastrophically when conditions aren't ideal. Manual confirmation, another advisor said slowly. You're proposing we rely on imperfect biological judgment instead of perfect mechanical precision. I'm proposing you use both, Adrian said. Technology and expertise working together instead of technology trying to replace expertise. Your physicians are trained and capable. Let them use their knowledge to compensate when systems encounter edge cases. Silence filled the throne room. Adrian could feel the weight of assessment, of an empire's leadership evaluating whether this primitive human understood their problems or was simply advocating for primitive solutions. Then, the Queen spoke. I have not told my council the full reason I brought Adrian Chin here. I will tell you now. My daughter, Princess Kira, has not spoken in 2 months. Our best technology finds no cause. Our best physicians have no treatment. I asked Adrian what he would do. He said he would sit with her. Be present. Not try to fix her, but simply show her she's not alone. She stood, descended from the throne. I have spent the past 6 days doing this. Every morning and evening I sit with Kira. I do not demand words. I do not attempt cures. I simply stay. Today, she spoke to me. 3 words. Stay with me. Not because my technology finally worked. Because my presence finally reached her. The Queen looked at each advisor in turn. We have built an empire on being superior. On perfect systems and optimal solutions. But we have forgotten that perfection is brittle. That optimization has costs. That sometimes the primitive solution, presence, resilience, acceptance of imperfection, is stronger than the advanced one. She turned to Adrian. Implement your solutions. Begin with Colony 17. If they work, expand to others. You have my full authority. Your Majesty. The crystalline advisor began. This decision is made, the Queen said flatly. We will learn to accept imperfection or we will lose our frontier. Those are the only options. Adrian Chen has shown us a path forward. We will take it. The council had no choice but to accept. Advisors filed out, some clearly skeptical, others thoughtful. Velrith remained, along with Dr. Sorvi and the engineering team. The colony ships depart in 3 days. The Queen told Adrian. You will join the expedition to Colony 17 personally. Oversee the implementation. Verify the solutions work in practice, not just theory. I'll need to contact Maya, Adrian said. Let her know I'll be gone longer than planned. Of course. Commander Velrith will ensure communication access. The Queen paused. Your daughter asked to learn about us. I am arranging for educational materials to be provided. Age-appropriate information about our society, our technology, our culture. If you are to be a bridge between our peoples, perhaps she should understand both sides as well. Adrian felt something shift in his chest. The Queen wasn't just using him. She was investing in connection. In understanding. In a future where humans and her empire might genuinely cooperate. Thank you, he said. That means more than you know. 3 days later, Adrian stood in the hangar bay of a colony ship, surrounded by crates of modified equipment, and a crew that ranged from supportive to openly hostile. The ship would take 17 days to reach Colony 17. 17 days to prove his solutions worked. 17 days to either validate the Queen's faith or demonstrate that primitive thinking couldn't solve advanced problems. As the ship prepared for departure, he pulled out his communication crystal and sent a message to Maya. Going on a trip to help fix some broken systems on a colony planet. We'll be gone about a month total. Missing you already? Stay brave. Love, Dad. The response came back almost immediately. Be safe. Fix everything. Commander Velrith promised you'd be okay. I believe her. I love you. Adrian smiled, pocketed the crystal, and turned to face the work ahead. He'd come to an alien empire as a prisoner. Now he was traveling to the frontier as something else entirely. Not a savior. Not a superior being. Just someone who understood that broken things could be fixed if you were willing to accept that perfect wasn't always better than good enough. The colony ship's engines thrummed to life. Through the viewport, the ascendant dawn grew smaller as they pulled away, beginning the journey toward the frontier and the 17 worlds that needed solutions their own civilization couldn't provide. Adrian Chin, maintenance technician from Seattle, was going to teach an empire how to survive its own perfection. And somehow, against all probability, he thought it might actually work. Colony 17 clung to existence on a harsh world designated as Frontier Classification 4, marginally habitable, requiring constant environmental management, prone to atmospheric storms that could strip flesh from bone. The colony housed 11,000 souls, all volunteers who'd accepted frontier life in exchange for opportunities unavailable in the crowded core worlds. When Adrian's transport descended through the turbulent upper atmosphere, he got his first real sense of what frontier meant. The colony was a cluster of interconnected domes surrounded by agricultural terraces that looked like they'd been carved from stone with desperation and determination. Beyond the settlement, native vegetation struggled against soil that didn't want to support it, colored in shades of purple and gray that made everything look perpetually bruised. Colony Administrator Thren 9 met them at the landing pad, her environmental suit scarred from years of exposure to the harsh conditions. "You're the human consultant," she said without preamble. "The one who's supposed to fix what the Empire's best engineers couldn't." "I'm here to try," Adrian replied. "Show me the medical facility. That's where I want to start." The medical center sat at the colony's heart, a dome larger than the others, connected by sealed corridors to residential and administrative sections. Inside, the facility looked like it belonged in a core world hospital: gleaming surfaces, advanced equipment, holographic displays showing patient data. All of it dark. Offline. Useless. Atmospheric contamination crashed the primary diagnostic systems 6 weeks ago, Thren 9 explained. "We've been running on backup systems since then, but they're degrading. We have 53 patients with chronic conditions that require precise monitoring. Without the diagnostics, we're guessing at treatment protocols. We've already lost 2 people. Adrian examined the primary diagnostic system. Just as he predicted, it was optimized for perfect atmospheric conditions, specifically calibrated for the standard mix maintained on core worlds. The colony's native atmosphere had trace compounds that interfered with the sensor arrays, creating cascading false readings that eventually crashed the entire system. "Why not maintain core world atmosphere in the medical facility?" Dr. StoryHFY asked. She joined the expedition to document Adrian's solutions. "They tried," Thren 9 said bitterly. "Environmental seals degraded within 3 months. This planet's atmosphere is corrosive on a molecular level. Nothing stays sealed perfectly. We can maintain livable conditions, but perfect core world composition? Impossible." Adrian pulled up the modification protocols he designed during the voyage. "We're going to recalibrate the diagnostic systems to function across a broader atmospheric range. It means less precision. The equipment won't give you perfect readings anymore. But it will give you usable readings that your medical staff can interpret and verify. Less precision means more mistakes," one of the colony's physicians protested. "How is that better?" "Because some information is better than no information," Adrian replied. "Right now you're operating blind. My modifications get you to 80% diagnostic accuracy. Your physicians use their training to validate and refine those results. It's not perfect, but it's survivable." Over the next 6 days, Adrian's team installed the modifications. The equipment fought them at every step, designed to resist exactly the kind of alteration they were implementing, programmed with safety protocols that prevented operation outside optimal parameters. Adrian had to carefully override each safety measure, convincing the systems that broader tolerance ranges were acceptable. On the 7th day, they activated the modified diagnostics. The equipment hummed to life. Initial readings appeared on the displays, less precise than core world standards, showing ranges instead of exact values, displaying confidence percentages alongside data points. But the information was accurate enough for the physicians to work with. "Patient 47. One of the doctors said, pulling up a chronic case. Preliminary diagnosis suggests metabolic imbalance, confidence 73%. Let me confirm." She ran manual verification tests, compared results against clinical observation, nodded. "Confirmed. The system's reading is accurate. We can adjust treatment based on this." One by one, they verified the diagnostic results against clinical judgment. Not perfect, but functional. Reliable enough to save lives instead of watching helplessly while equipment designed for perfection failed under real-world conditions. Thren 9 found Adrian in the medical center's observation room, watching physicians work with the modified equipment. "It's not elegant," she said. "No," Adrian agreed. "But it works. That's what matters out here, isn't it? Function over elegance. Survival over optimization. The Empire has never understood that." Thren 9's voice carried decades of frontier experience. "They send us perfect systems designed for perfect conditions. When we tell them perfect doesn't exist out here, they send engineers to restore perfect conditions instead of adapting the systems. You're the first person from the core worlds who's actually listened to what we need instead of telling us what we should need." "I'm not from the core worlds," Adrian pointed out. "Exactly." Thren 9's expression shifted to something like respect. "You're from somewhere even the frontier looks down on. But you understand us better than our own civilization does. There's a lesson in that." Over the following weeks, Adrian worked through the colony's other critical systems. Environmental controls got broader tolerance ranges. Food production systems received manual override capabilities for when optimal conditions weren't achievable. Communications equipment was reinforced against atmospheric interference instead of trying to eliminate the interference entirely. Each modification followed the same principle, except that conditions wouldn't be perfect, design systems to function anyway, give human operators the tools and authority to compensate when technology encountered edge cases. The colony's population initially met the changes with skepticism. They'd been promised advanced technology would make frontier life comfortable. Instead, they were being told to accept less capable systems and rely more on their own expertise. Then, a massive atmospheric storm hit. Colony-wide alarms blared as wind speeds exceeded 200 kilometers per hour, carrying particulate matter that could strip flesh and damage equipment. The colony sealed itself tight, everyone sheltering in the reinforced domes while the storm raged outside. Under the old systems, this would have been catastrophic. Perfect atmospheric seals couldn't maintain integrity against prolonged assault. Perfect environmental controls couldn't compensate for massive contamination. Perfect systems would fail perfectly, leaving the colony to suffocate or freeze. Under Adrian's modifications, the systems fought. Environmental controls detected contamination, compensated with broader tolerance ranges, routed air through backup filtration when primary systems couldn't keep up. Medical diagnostics continued functioning despite atmospheric composition chaos. Food production systems operated on manual overrides when automated optimization failed. The storm lasted 48 hours. Throughout, the colony's critical systems remained functional. Not perfect. Not optimal. But alive. When the storm finally passed and the population emerged from shelter, they found their world intact. Damaged, yes. Systems degraded, requiring maintenance and repair. But functional. Survivable. Thren 9 stood with Adrian on the landing pad, surveying the storm damage. "The old systems would have killed us," she said quietly. "Perfect equipment optimized for perfect conditions, catastrophically failing when conditions got difficult. Your imperfect systems kept us alive. They'll need maintenance," Adrian warned. "Regular inspection and repair. The old systems were designed to be self-sufficient. These need human oversight. We have humans. We have expertise. We have people who've spent years learning to survive out here." Thren 9 turned to face him fully. "What we didn't have was equipment that respected our expertise instead of trying to replace it. You gave us that." Dr. StoryHFY had been documenting everything. Now she approached with data crystals containing detailed reports on all the modifications, their implementation, and their performance during the storm. "This is revolutionary," she said. "Not because the solutions are advanced, but because they're appropriate. We've been trying to extend core world perfection to the frontier. You've shown us how to design specifically for frontier reality." "The Council won't like it," Adrian said. Accepting that frontier systems should be deliberately less advanced than core world systems undermines the Empire's narrative about bringing advancement to new territories. The Council isn't here, Thren 9 said bluntly. They're not the ones watching people die because perfect equipment fails under imperfect conditions. Let them argue in their throne rooms. Out here, we'll use what works. Word spread quickly through the frontier network. Colony 17 had survived a massive storm using modified systems designed by a human consultant. Other colony administrators sent requests for similar modifications. The trickle became a flood, 43 frontier worlds requesting Adrian's help within 2 weeks. The Queen's response was swift. Adrian received a message on his communication crystal, marked with her personal encryption. Return to the Ascendant Dawn. We have much to discuss. The voyage back took 17 days, during which Adrian compiled comprehensive documentation on all his colony modifications. Principles, implementation guides, training protocols for maintenance staff. Everything needed to replicate his approach across the frontier. When he arrived at the Ascendant Dawn, Velrith met him with an expression he'd learned to recognize as concerned. The Council has convened, she said. Your frontier modifications have created political complications. Half the Council sees you as solving critical problems. The other half sees you as undermining imperial standards and encouraging frontier worlds to accept inferior technology. What does the Queen think? She's been visiting Princess Kira every day. The princess speaks more each time. Simple conversations at first, now longer discussions. The Queen attributes this to the principle you taught her. Presence over perfection, being there over trying to fix. She believes in your approach. Velrith paused. But belief and political reality aren't always aligned. The throne room was filled with more beings than Adrian had ever seen there before, not just the Council, but representatives from multiple frontier worlds, core world engineers, military commanders, and what looked like civilian population delegates. The Queen sat on her throne, her expression carefully neutral. Adrian Chin, she said formally. You have modified critical systems across our frontier territories. Some call you a savior. Others call you a threat to imperial standards. This assembly has gathered to determine which assessment is accurate. You will present your case. The Council will deliberate. We will decide whether your approach represents the Empire's future or a dangerous deviation from proven superiority. This was it. The moment where everything would be decided. Whether an empire built on perfection could learn to value resilience. Whether Adrian's philosophy of imperfect but robust systems would be embraced or rejected. He stepped forward, alone before the assembled power of an empire, and began to speak. I'm not here to tell you your technology is wrong or your approach is inferior. I'm here to tell you that different environments require different solutions. What works perfectly in controlled core world conditions doesn't work the same way on the frontier. That's not a failure. That's just reality. He activated displays showing before and after data from Colony 17. Your perfect systems failed catastrophically when conditions deviated from specifications. My imperfect systems continued functioning through a storm that would have killed 11,000 people under the old approach. The question isn't which system is better in absolute terms. The question is which system is appropriate for the environment where it has to operate. A core world engineer stood. You advocate for deliberately degraded performance. For accepting inefficiency and reduced capability. How is this advancement? How does this represent imperial superiority? It represents imperial wisdom, Adrian replied, recognizing that strength comes in many forms. That a system designed to survive hostile conditions serves its purpose better than a system designed for perfection that fails when conditions get difficult. You're not diminishing your technology by adapting it. You're demonstrating that your civilization is smart enough to use the right tools for each job instead of insisting the same solution works everywhere. Thren 9 stood now, her frontier-scarred suit a stark contrast to the pristine formal wear of core world delegates. I've served on the frontier for 37 years. I've watched 17 colleagues die because perfect equipment failed when we needed it most. In 6 weeks, Adrian Chen's modifications have saved more frontier lives than the past decade of core world solutions. That's not degradation. That's finally paying attention to what we actually need instead of what someone in a comfortable office thinks we should need. Other frontier representatives stood, adding their testimony. Stories of equipment failures, of systems designed for conditions that didn't exist, of watching their populations suffer because advancement meant optimization instead of appropriateness. The core world contingent grew increasingly uncomfortable. Their narrative, that empire meant extending perfect solutions to imperfect places, was being directly challenged by the people they were supposedly helping. Finally, the Queen raised one hand. Silence fell immediately. "I am going to tell you something I have not shared publicly," she said. "When my daughter stopped speaking, I applied every advanced solution our civilization could offer. Perfect medical technology. Optimal psychological interventions. The best minds in the empire analyzing every variable. All of it failed. Do you know what worked? Sitting with her. Being present. Accepting that sometimes the solution isn't more perfect technology but simple, imperfect human connection." She descended from the throne, walked through the assembled delegates until she stood directly beside Adrian. "This human taught me that perfection can be a cage. That optimization can make us blind to simple truths. That sometimes advancement means accepting what works instead of demanding what's ideal." She looked at the council. "I am declaring a new imperial directive. Frontier systems will be designed for frontier conditions. Core world standards will apply to core worlds. We will embrace appropriate solutions over universal optimization. And Adrian Chen will oversee this transition, with full authority to modify any system that serves populations better by being resilient than by being perfect." The core world engineers looked stunned. The frontier representatives looked vindicated. The council members exchanged glances, clearly calculating political implications. "Your Majesty," the crystalline advisor said carefully, "this represents a fundamental shift in imperial philosophy. It will require massive infrastructure changes. Retraining of personnel. Acceptance that different territories operate under different standards. The complexity alone is manageable." The Queen interrupted. "By people who understand that complexity and perfection are not the same thing. We will proceed. Adrian Chen, you will remain as special consultant to the throne. Commander Velrith will provide any resources you require. This assembly is dismissed." As delegates filed out, Adrian found himself surrounded by frontier administrators, all wanting to discuss modifications for their worlds. Dr. Soravi pushed through the crowd with her data crystals, already planning documentation strategies. Engineers who'd been skeptical now pressed forward with questions about implementation. Velrith eventually extracted him, guiding him toward a quieter corridor. "You just changed the foundational philosophy of an empire that's existed for 2,000 years. I just convinced them to use the right tools for the right jobs," Adrian said. "That shouldn't be revolutionary. For them it is." Velrith paused. "For us. I'm part of this empire too. I believed in our superiority. Our perfection. You've made me question whether superiority means what I thought it meant." "Superiority isn't about being perfect," Adrian said. "It's about being effective. About achieving your goals in the conditions where you actually operate. Your empire is superior because it can learn and adapt. Not because it never makes mistakes, but because it can recognize mistakes and change course." His communication crystal chimed. A message from Maya, sent through the secure channel the Queen had established. "The stuff about the Empire is really cool. I told my class about aliens and nobody believed me until I showed them the materials Commander Velrith sent. Now I'm the most popular kid in school. How's work? Are you fixing things? I miss you. When are you coming home?" Adrian smiled, showed the message to Velrith. "I need to go home soon. Just for a few days. See my daughter. Be present instead of just sending messages." "The Queen has already approved it," Velrith said. 3 days leave, departing tomorrow. She understands that you have two responsibilities now, to her empire and to your family. She respects both. That night, in his quarters aboard the Ascendant Dawn, Adrian prepared to go home. He compiled notes on the modifications being implemented across the frontier, created training materials for engineers who were learning to design for resilience instead of perfection, recorded messages for the various teams now carrying forward his philosophy. A knock on his door interrupted the work. When he opened it, he found Princess Kira standing there with Commander Velrith behind her. The princess was small for her species, her crest still developing, her forearms held in a posture that suggested both nervousness and determination. She looked at Adrian with large eyes that held intelligence beyond her years. "You're the human who helped my mother understand presence," she said quietly. "Your mother taught herself," Adrian replied gently. "I just shared what worked for me and my daughter. I wanted to thank you. And to ask." Kira hesitated. "Your daughter Maya. She's learning about our culture. Could I learn about yours? Could we talk sometimes? I think having a friend who understands what it's like to have a parent who's important and busy might be good." Adrian felt something shift in his chest. Connection bridging not just species but generations. A princess and a maintenance technician's daughter finding common ground in shared experience of family complicated by duty. "I think Maya would like that very much," he said. "With your mother's permission and your comfort, yes. We can set up communication times that work for both of you." Kira's crest extended slightly. Pleasure, Adrian had learned. "Thank you. Mother says you're teaching our empire important lessons. I think you taught me one too. That being perfect isn't as important as being real." After Kira left with Velrith, Adrian returned to his preparations. But his mind kept circling back to that simple statement. Being perfect isn't as important as being real. An entire empire was learning that lesson. Redesigning systems. Rethinking philosophy. Accepting that strength came from resilience, not optimization. That advancement meant appropriateness, not uniformity. That sometimes the primitive solution, the robust, imperfect, human solution, was superior to the advanced one. And it had started because they'd grabbed a maintenance technician from Seattle who knew how to fix broken things by accepting they didn't have to be perfect to work. Tomorrow he'd go home to Maya. He'd spend 3 days being present with his daughter, being real instead of trying to be perfect. Then, he'd return and continue the work of teaching an empire that had conquered the stars how to survive their own success. For now, though, he finished his preparations, sent a message to Maya telling her he'd be home tomorrow, and allowed himself to feel something he hadn't fully processed yet. Hope. Not that everything would be perfect. But that imperfect could be enough. That broken things could be fixed. That an empire and a human could learn from each other instead of one dominating the other. That maybe, just maybe, the future could be built on resilience instead of perfection. And that would be better than any perfect solution could ever be.